welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you're joining me today. I have a very special guest. Her name is Marghie. Welcome, Marghie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
She has 8 children ranging in age from 11 to 24 and a husband as well. I'm guessing some animals.
We do.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, my husband JC and I, we have 8 children. We do have a big old Bernie Doodle dog and a fun fat cat that everybody adores at our home when they come to visit. And we've got a barn full of baby chicks right now. My 12-year-old is obsessed and a little homesteader. Yep. She keeps us cracking and including more animals, adding them to our little mini farm.
Is she hoping to have eggs one day? Is that the goal?
Yes. We have kind of hobby farmed for years and years. So since we moved a couple years ago, my husband's been reluctant to get all of that started and make sure that we have infrastructure set up before we get the animals.
Before someone adds a cow.
That's not the Christensen way. We just jump into it and figure it out on the fly.
What other animals have you had in the past?
Oh, we have, we've had sheep. We used to have a fiber processing business where my husband made yarn and different products from alpaca and sheep farmers.
Wow.
Yeah. So people would it was custom processing. So they would send us their fiber and then he would make that into yarn or different roving and different things and then send it back to them and they would retail it. So we did that for a long, long time.
That is so interesting. Mm-hmm. And you did that in Ohio. You came from Ohio.
Yeah. My mother-in-law started that company. My husband was helping her out while he was in seminary. And then that's a whole nother thing. A whole
nother life.
Yes. It is it was really neat. A neat ministry that the Lord gave us for a long time. And during that season, we lived on 2 acres. Our business was on 4 acres and it was just adjacent. So we had sheep and we would board a neighbor's horse for a time. And we had goats and chickens and we raised meat chickens too. So we would butcher like 100 chickens at a time. So anyhow, my oldest son is now, that's his dream, is to have his own butchering company. So he's been working on that and he slaughters everybody's hogs that have been getting the itch to raise their own hogs this year.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess that you had children when you were doing all the other animals. And so they remember fondly the farm.
Big time.
Oh, that's fun. Yep. What kind of hospitality did you do? I know you mentioned in Ohio that your husband was in seminary.
Yeah.
What kind of hospitality did you do as a young married woman? Right.
Well, we early in our marriage, my husband was a youth pastor, so we always had high school kids, in and out, and so in our youth staff, having them over for leadership things and stuff like that. So we've been having lots of people over often from the beginning. There were a couple of years in Ohio where we hosted a house church, and our house made the most sense with all the families that were involved. And so we hosted that every Sunday evening for 2 years. And so we had to learn a lot of how to live our life in a normal, not chaotic way, where we're always going, we have to get ready, and just kind of have a hard stop of like, okay,
right,
now it's time to get ready and prepare so it wouldn't overwhelm us. So
yes, yeah, but not always feel like every single day you have to tiptoe around living.
Exactly, which is easy for me.
Over that weekend,
I can get really particular about the way I have it all envisioned, and it can be a drag.
Yes.
It can be a drag on everybody else of making mom's dreams come true. So prioritize family time and recognizing that everything does not have to be perfect. In fact, people feel maybe more at ease if it's not picture perfect always.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And here where you currently live, do you have people over?
We do.
Tell me about that.
Yes. So our kids, we've got lots of older kids now too, and host kind of an open house dinner or lunch on Sundays twice a month. So second and fourth Sundays, whoever
do you
wants
know
to
how
come.
many are coming if it's open house? Do they RSVP, or do you really just have
we have like a text thread.
Okay.
We have a text thread of people who have just frequented. So there's actually kids that come from different churches even and stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of organically grown from that. And everyone knows that if they have, friend in town or somebody new that would like to come, that they can just say, hey, is it okay if I bring so-and-so? So we usually have a good idea. I think with my family, my son is married now, so we've got 11 of us all together, plus all of our guests. We have between 20 to 25. That's the general norm, what people can make it.
Right. So yes, if you have a text thread, which is a great idea, you have a general idea of numbers. And usually if you're cooking something, you're going to make a little bit extra anyway. You're not making the exact, where there's not one bite of leftovers.
Oh, exactly. So, and I'll even tell them, hey, everybody, this is what I'm making. So I've kind of taken the pressure off in this context, it's not, when you just have one family coming over, it is fun to be able to think through the whole menu and do dessert and do all the things. It can get expensive if you're doing it on the regular with that many people
for sure
too. And so it's my inclination. Like, I'm just like, oh, it's fine. I'll do it. And then I have to take a step back and be like, wow, our grocery bill is really crazy. Why?
I have blown the budget.
Yeah. But you know what? These kids actually they love to participate too. So they'll come over and start helping cook. And a lot of our kids' friends, they have met while working at Tapped. So that's kind of neat that these kids are all really familiar around the kitchen. So I'm like, they'll come and I'm like, here, do this.
They're an expert when it comes to flipping things on the grill or washing dishes or stirring a pot of soup.
Totally. I've actually watched a couple of young guys come in that don't really have kitchen experience, but because there were so many hands helping, they felt awkward and they were like, what can I do? And I'm like, I just inched myself out of the kitchen. I'm like, well, I guess all that's covered. There's no room for me.
Kitchen manager around here.
Room for me anymore.
That's pretty amazing.
It's so sweet. I love it. But yeah, I also will generally say, and I mean, honestly, sometimes I make the decision on the menu that night, the night before. I'll be like, we're doing this. And run to the store and grab a couple things. But I'll say, oh, we're having pulled pork or, whatever. And if anybody wants to bring dessert or bread or drinks and just speak up.
Yes.
And a lot of it, you just kind of trust the Lord for too. You're like, there might not be dessert and that's fine.
And it's fine.
And maybe there's not drinks and we'll just fill up our thing with ice water and it's fine.
Exactly. Exactly. And college kids, that's something that they could easily pick up from the store.
Exactly.
Or if they're into cooking, that's something that's not hard or expensive.
Yep.
Bread is very inexpensive to make. A lot of people are into making bread.
Yep.
And desserts, you can't, obviously desserts can be very expensive, but you can also make them on the inexpensive side
exactly.
too. So
no, I've had several ladies that will young ladies that bring amazing things that we're like, okay,
well,
let's just have a bread competition. Yeah. Everyone's like,
a lot of girls grew up loving their favorite thing to make was the dessert. So they sure don't mind kind of pulling out some family favorites.
Exactly.
I always wanted to make something with sugar growing up.
My girls are, I just left my house with my 12-year-old baking her own 13-year-old. She just turned 13 on Wednesday, baking her own carrot cake for her birthday.
Yes.
And I'm like, I hope everything goes okay.
My daughter made her own cupcakes for her wedding and her own it seems like she made something for her baby shower and probably made something for her bridal shower.
Yes, I know.
She cracks me up.
It's
She's like, well, Mom, I can make such and such. I have time. What's your own shower?
My daughter-in-law said she was going to make her own birthday or wedding cake. And we were like, at the last minute, we talked her out of it just because she wouldn't have on her plate. But it was so sweet. Her friend had made her friends kind of cutting cake that they were doing.
Yes.
And then her friend did the same thing for her. And it was such a sweet, I'm like, you guys, I think you've just started a little tradition. We need to keep that ball rolling. It's a really sweet gift.
Sweet. Yes, absolutely. And delicious. If they know their way around a kitchen, that's way better than buying it from the store.
Yeah.
So what is a favorite menu you might choose to serve for dinner?
So there's probably several. There's definitely several. I had an idea that I was going to tell you that I think is really beautiful, and I'll give you the recipe for the Italian sausage soup.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a minestrone.
That sounds delicious.
Right. And you can throw pasta into it or not. And but my kids told me, Mom, We don't like cooked zucchini in a soup.
Oh, the vegetables are turning them off.
Which I suppose, depending on your crowd, it works out great. But if you have lots of little ones, or if you're bringing, this meal to a family with little ones, it may not be everyone's favorite, literally for just that reason. But there's carrots and tomatoes and zucchini and fresh spinach that you throw in at the end. So it's like really pretty.
Yeah. And healthy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Lots of vegetables.
I got the recipe on our Homeowners Association newsletter in like 2021, I think. Or no, not 21, 2001. 2001. Yes. And I am still friends with the lady that put it on. That was like our president. My husband was was the vice president of that because he was big and he could just be her bodyguard when she had to go tell people, take her Christmas lights off in June.
Right.
She's like, you don't have to say anything. Just come and back me up.
Hulking behind her.
She was the annoyed one with those kinds of things.
So what else do you serve? So your kids said on the Italian soup. What did you say? Italian wedding
Italian
soup?
Sausage soup.
Italian sausage soup. So what else would they recommend?
So we very regularly make a tortilla soup. I call it I'm very flexible in the soup department. So it depends on what is all in my pantry. So it might be a white chicken chili, what some would call a white chicken chili. But then I'm like, oh, but I have these diced tomatoes. So I'll throw those in. And then suddenly it grows and grows. So it's not exactly white anymore.
Maybe a Mexican style tortilla soup.
So you really could do ground beef if you had it. But we'll start off with chicken breasts, and I'll get like the whole big pack of chicken breasts. I can tell you my favorite tool. I have lots of favorite tools, but the Instapot is my friend when it comes to doing big soups, especially if you're doing it, you need to throw something together in an hour. Season really, good, generously salt and pepper. The chicken breast, throw them in the Instapot, put a cup of water, turn it on for 15 minutes. If they're coming straight from the store, you can put them in frozen, honestly.
And this is the pressure setting?
Yeah, just under pressure.
For 15 minutes?
For 15 minutes,
if
they're raw.
How long does that typically take? Because I know the steam has to build up and release. So, or do you manually release the steam to make it faster?
It depends. Depends on what I look. Sometimes I look and it's like, oh, it's been on keep warm for 15 minutes. But, but if you do it for 15 minutes, if they're not frozen, they'll be done through. Yeah, it takes maybe 10 minutes to come to pressure. So in 25 minutes. Yeah, I like that better because then it's actually almost shreddable at that point. You could put them in your oven for maybe only 10 more minutes besides that 35 minutes to have them cooked about the same. But I think they're a little tougher
in the
sometimes.
oven.
It depends. Yeah, depends if you have to just have it just right. So I throw it all in the Instapot and then I don't have to think about it or forget, even if you forget about it, it's going to be fine. I often have chicken broth frozen in my freezer in big Ziploc bags. Anytime we do whole chickens, I will throw all the carcass and bones and collect all that and then simmer those. You can do that in the Instapot too and make bone broth like way faster.
Do you do that under pressure or under soup?
Yeah, I do it under pressure. I really don't use all of the settings. I just do.
I don't remember all of the settings, but yes. I think that's the main one people use.
Right. I think I found my little manual in the drawer a few months ago and I was like, oh, I have a manual for this thing.
There are instructions. I just wing it.
I do. Or I Google everything. I was like, hey, how long should you do a pork roast that's this big?
Yes. I made the mistake this last week. I had a slow cooker for years. That's all anybody ever had before the Instapot was a slow cooker. When you're slow cooking on low, it really does get up to a nice simmer. But I can make a really good roast on doing the slow cooker for 8 hours on low. Okay. Delicious every time. Amazing. So I thought this past week, I'm going to do it in the Instapot. I need to use it more. And so instead of doing the pressure, I decided because I'm going to be gone to work all day, I need to do the slow cook setting on the Instapot for 8 hours.
It's not as hot.
It's not. It wasn't at all the same. Not at all. It was, I guess it was cooked. It was super tough. It was not falling apart. It needed hours longer. So I set it for more hours.
Okay.
It still wasn't tender hours later. And it was fine.
Yeah.
It was.
If I think I've done that before and I just put it under pressure, like actually pressure cook it, but then it's hard to know exactly how long.
Yeah. I just realized it's not the same as a slow cooker.
I know.
Like it doesn't heat up
I got rid of all my crock pots when I had 2 Instant Pots. I got 2 Instant Pots for my birthday one year because my husband and my mom hadn't spoken and consulted each other. And then I showed
Yay,
2 of them showed up on my
Instant
porch, and I'm
Pots.
like, woo. Everyone's like, we can return one. I was like, no, I don't want you to.
Well, when
I
I
want them both.
moved, I either gave mine away or sold them in a garage sale because I thought, I have a slow cooker function. It's the same.
Yeah,
it's not the same,
I know.
guys.
It isn't.
It's not
It's
the
wrong.
same. And I know listeners out there would be like, oh, well, you can do it under pressure for da-da-da-da. I'm sure I can look that up, but I really wanted the option of being able to be gone for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Not have a pressure like it's going to be done and you're
Remember-
not home.
Check your temperature in your crock pot or or get a crock pot. But I'm curious what that temperature is.
I know. And I looked to see if I could set it higher, like up the temperature, but I couldn't find any way to make it a higher heat.
No. Yeah.
So anyway,
it doesn't work good as a slow
just
cooker.
FYI.
I know.
But back to your pressure cooked
So, yeah.
amazing chicken.
So
We're onto
that's just the
broth.
simple. Yep. Dump. I will do blocks, my frozen blocks of broth. But I often will just do either quarts, the quart boxes of broth, or even, depending, because this is like a pantry meal. Like this is something that I always have chicken breasts in my deep freezer. I always have, all of these canned things that I'm going to put in it too. So sometimes I'll do better than bouillon, just for my broth base. And so liquid wise, I would have to, I suppose for 10, probably put 4 quarts, a gallon of broth. Something I forgot to mention is that my people are humongous. So I'm like, serves 10.
10 really
my
large people.
That's right. Exactly. I was like, wow, I forget about that sometimes. But yes, all of my boys are well over 6 feet. And over 250.
Football player types.
Big guys, and then my husband too. So,
Yes.
And my 14-year-old son is really, his metabolism is really fast and he's taking off right now. So
Yes.
it's amazing.
Yeah, especially when they hit growth spurts, and you never quite know when it is
Poor
until
kid.
all of a sudden you've made a pot of soup and it's just you and him and half of it's gone.
I know.
That
Yep.
sort of thing.
Yep. It's shocking. He has a hard time getting to school on time because he's like, hold on, I have to make one more peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, how many do you have? He's like, 5.
My daughter-in-law in the South's dad, who was telling me that he would make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but instead of like putting them in Ziploc bags or whatever individually, he made so many.
You just put them
that
back
he
in
just
the
put
loaf.
Them back in the bread bag.
Yep.
Yeah.
We totally do
And
that.
so-
We totally do that. Yes.
There's a loaf. What you think is a loaf of bread is it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches lined up.
Yep. Jesse does that. And he's like, oh, they're so great. Like, even if you can't finish it that day or the next, like it's all crystallized and they're delicious. He loves it. Yep. That's his
Perfect.
thing right
Even,
now.
like if they're heading to a sports practice, that's perfect, driving there too, like an in between school and sports.
Yep. Oh,
snack.
I know. Those kids are busy. Yeah. They were always doing that. Well, yeah. So throwing our broth in, and then one or 2 I guess for this one recipe, the big can of diced tomatoes. And then black beans and I do canned black beans, canned Great Northern beans, one or the other or both of them, but at least 2 cans of beans. I like to do a can of corn. But like I said, this is just like a Mexican soup. So this is when I'm doing like a tortilla one. Mm-hmm. You could have a combination of beans, canned chilies, green canned chilies for sure, for flavor. Mm-hmm. And then I put a cup of basmati rice in it.
That would be good.
Mm-hmm. And if it absorbs too much of your liquid, you can just add some water to, make it a little bit more brothy. And then some cumin and chili powder, like probably a tablespoon of cumin, tablespoon of chili powder, and a pinch of crushed red pepper. I put crushed red pepper basically in every single soup. Not a ton, because I've got a little sissy girl that is like, I don't like hot. It's too hot. But I love crushed red pepper because it doesn't burn your mouth. It's not spicy in your mouth. It's warms your throat.
Okay.
It's just this like little
Just a
kind
hint
after
of heat.
Yes. So like pretty. If you're doing a big pot of soup, a pinch of red chicken. Yeah.
It's
maybe
not gonna
maybe you
make
need
it hot.
2. Yeah. Maybe you need 2. But start with 1 and let that cook in there, and that's like magic. And then my big tip is adobo seasoning. The Goya brand adobo seasoning. It's like magic. I don't know.
So is this a dried seasoning? It's not the adobo chilies in the sauce?
Right. It is not adobo chilies. So it's not spicy at all.
Okay.
But adobo is just the name of the seasoning blend. I mean, it's not like crazy seasonings, but it's the perfect blend of them. So I have had people, they're like, oh, you could make your own. And I'm like, no, you can't.
You can't make this one.
Goya makes it perfect. And it does not have MSG, which Goya seasonings often have MSG, like that brand. But this doesn't have MSG, and you can get it with pepper, with black pepper or not. We use it for everything. And you almost, I mean, I still use salt in some things, but like in a pot of soup, this is kind of just like, instead of adding extra salt for seasoning, you would just do this. I literally, like, the measurement would just be like a whoop, like going all the way around your pot.
You can tell she's an artistic cook.
Exactly.
She does art.
I was like,
in the
how
kitchen.
much? And I'm like, with my hand motions, like this much.
Later on, when your children are trying to get receives from you,
they watch me.
Oh, good.
They watch me. They know. So actually, all my boys, my oldest 3 boys live on their own now. So they all have adobo in their cabinets. If you make the same soup without adobo and served it, and then you made it again with adobo, everyone would say, what have you done? This is the best soup ever. So I've made this for, potlucks and different thing, homeschool. I remember bringing it to a big homeschool event where we had like a chili cook-off kind of thing. And I've just brought that as an alternative to red tomato-based chili. And my friend came over and she's like, I have to have the recipe. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, it's really not that complicated. So I just found her basically, tortilla soup recipe or something like that online, and she read it and she goes, yeah, I make that. And this does not taste. This did not taste like what I do.
Your secret ingredient.
I know. I didn't think about it, and I was like, "Oh, it's adobo. That's the magic." And I know this because of one of my very, very long time best friends is Puerto Rican, and every single thing she cooks is magic. And so you have to figure out, like, why does
what is the
why
secret
does my
seasoning?
food not taste like yours? I mean, just basic things like chicken noodle soup. Like,
right.
why is yours? My kids come back for, more and more. And she was like, oh, it's because of adobo. And I'm like, okay, what?
Wow.
So she got me on, like, she would never have offered that to me. She wasn't going to hint to me, like, you really need this in your food.
Right. But she was thinking, wow,
she probably
you cook
was.
really bland food. You need adobo seasoning.
No, she's so precious. She would never even, she was like, I never even thought about it. But when I'm like, why does your food all taste so good? And she's like, oh, it's because I do this.
Does yours have the red label and the red lid? Okay. Because there is one that says without pepper and it's blue.
And then there's
a with cumin, which is green. So anyways, a couple other
I do the red one. And honestly, there is, if you have a Mexican grocery store in your town, then definitely they have it. So I would get it there if we were traveling or something. And there is one in Spokane. So I did go and I was like, oh, there's all these other varieties. There was one with saffron. So there were all these like different varieties. So I bought these little bottles of them just to see, and they were all great. And I still use them in the same liberal,
yes,
with whatever recipe I wanted to.
You do it with the hand motion. This is how much.
Yes. But anyway, when you're putting cumin already in your recipe, then
you just need the all-purpose without the cumin added.
Yep. So my kids, I mean, we really do. We use it. The kids will put it in eggs, and there's just nothing that we don't use it in.
Okay, I have to buy some
it's
of
really
this
good.
now.
It is.
Mean, it's being added to the Amazon
blend.
cart as we speak.
There you go. It's the perfect blend. But that's the magic. Then we're chopping up. Once the chicken, you can handle it, chopping it up. I don't really shred it because I don't know. In my soup, I don't really want a shreddy meat.
Really
I want it
like
in little bite. Yeah, diced. Put that, dump it in, coarsely cut up corn tortillas. And really after it's already been simmering and in your rices, as soon as your rice is done, your soup is done. Turn that off. Chop up corn tortillas, stir those through. So I'm going to say in the pot, in a size that bag, probably like 15 tortillas. Chop them up coarsely and throw them in, stir that in, put the lid on, and then get your toppings and stuff ready. It's okay if they get really mushy and dissolve because it's just that really good corn flavor. that we love.
Sounds really good.
But it's okay if they get too soggy, soggy, but you don't need to keep, you don't really have to cook them for a long time with that.
Right. So they just need to be hot. Do you serve that as a one dish meal, or do you serve things on the side, or is that your complete menu?
That is our we do that. And then we're chopping up cilantro. So we have all the toppings. So we've got a big bowl of cilantro. I've got lime wedges, or I always keep a little bottle of lime juice just in case I forgot, or it's, just convenient. And diced red onion or green onions, chopped up. So we've got bowls of onions with I bought those cute little pincher, tongs for all of these things. And a big bowl of grated cheese and sour cream. And then tortillas. If you have a big crowd, this is fun. If it's just my family, we will generally just leave the chips and pour them into a bowl so that everybody can take some chips with it. But if you have a big crowd, chips don't make it to those last 5 people will not have any chip toppings. So if you've got a few bags of chips, it will break someone's heart to watch you do this. So if you need to go to a private room and crush the entire bag of chips.
Oh, so they're getting small pieces.
Yes, don't explode it. Let the air out.
Instead of giant, being able to
and have it as a topping.
Handfuls.
If it's as a topping for your soup, then it needs to not be we're having nachos, right? Because then they'll just be gone. So
do you serve those with a spoon then?
Yep. Put a little serving spoon in that, and then they can do that.
That actually makes sense for the topping of the soup.
I thought it was it was kind of a funny thing. We had a really sweet lady at our church in Ohio that would put on these big fundraisers. Once a month, they would have an after church dinner, and she was excellent at it. She was pretty young. She had grown up in a large family, so she was accustomed to helping cook for, big crowds, and she would do it for the whole church and just kind of direct it. And that was one of their haystacks. It was kind of like burrito bowl, but they called it haystacks, where you pile up all your toppings. And she always had these big old things of crushed chips. And I thought, that's actually brilliant, because that all those kids would just be having handfuls of chips and not eat their food.
Exactly.
Take
just
it from
scarfing
else.
Chips down. But if it's fresh, they have to put it on top of their food and use their spoon or fork.
Yeah. So I do
in
that.
Their mouth.
I do that a lot just because I can get those 2 big bags of the Juanita's chips that are so good. And that makes them last longer. So
genius.
Yep. And that is basically, that when we're doing taco soup or whatever, that is
one bowl wonder. Sounds like you have everything.
And everyone goes back. There's never any left over. So I will do that times 2 or 3, depending on the crowd that I have, if you have a big enough pot.
Yes.
But you could do separate pots. I've had to do that before when I just had a few kids and, didn't have.
They all grew and grew and grew.
Exactly. You just get your 2 biggest pots and you just don't mix all your ingredients together. Just keep doing it and have 2 pots on the stove. No big deal.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yep.
What about dessert? Do you ever serve dessert?
I have a girlfriend that has 6 children. One of my friends in Atlanta that we had babies tandemly for years and were each other's little lifelines because we didn't know anybody else that was doing the crazy things that we were doing at that time. So we always share and swap tips. And generally we know, oh, of course you do that, cut your kids' pizza with scissors rather than pizza cutters or anything else. I don't know. Just little tips that were oh, this is way faster. Just anyway. And she said, oh yeah, I was speaking at some thing for hospitality recently. And I was like, oh, you're going to have to share, make sure that I didn't miss anything. And she was like, oh, come on. I promise you, I did not say anything you don't already know. But one of the things that I think she and I must have talked about years ago is making cookies. All of a sudden you've got a crowd at your house because the movie night ended up there.
Right.
At the last minute.
Yes.
And so you're like, oh, or football games or whatever's going on. That happens at our house a lot. We always have chocolate chips. So every time I go to the grocery store, I buy 2 more bags of chocolate chips, always. Just it's those all your baking staples.
Staple.
Yep. And it can be, trail mix snack, or it sometimes ends up being dessert.
Yes.
So I think several of us ladies at our house have chocolate chip recipe memorized. You don't even have to look at a recipe, you know what you need. And we'll throw a batch of chocolate chip cookies together. But rather than undercook the first batch and burn the last batch, which is our tradition. Generally, it seems like when we're making a bunch of cookies, If you have a big crowd, just press that all into the pan and just do bars. Like you've got your whole big blob. If you have a big pan, press it in on a parchment, always parchment.
Okay.
Nobody wants to be washing dishes or scraping it off at the bottom of the pan.
Fair.
And and just press it in and throw it in the oven. And it's been so fun. Everyone's like, wait, you made us dessert? And you're like, it literally took you 5 minutes to put in, get it from start to finish in the oven.
Pressed it into a pan, which is easier than making balls and then cooking them individually.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
So
do you just kind of watch it, or do you have a standard time that you generally?
Everyone says, something smells really good. And you're like, oh, it must be done.
Oh, it's done. Don't let them overcook. No,
I do. I should always set a timer. I try to do that because I know myself. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I won't forget.
And then you're out feeding the chickens or something.
You don't know. Yeah, exactly. So no, it is a rule. You have to set a timer, even if you don't know how long it's going to be, but set that timer for 15 minutes and then go back and check. And it probably needs another 10.
That is a great idea.
Because if you're doing it in bars, they are going to take longer.
Yeah.
But at least you can be with your guests then, and you're not. Anyway, unless they're not
going to smell burnt chocolate chip, which is the worst, because then it's like, okay, now we really don't get dessert, and that's worse than smelling nothing at all.
Right. Unless you have a bunch of kids. If I had a bunch of 10-year-old girls at my house, then that might be an activity that they could participate. So, you know what, guys?
Let's make the chocolate chip
do you guys want to make
cookies?
And I can just let them go. So we're definitely in a different stage of life where I don't have to think about those things, especially if I have too many things. I'm already like, okay, check. Who's making dessert? Oh, okay. If you're doing a different soup, this is not necessarily for this recipe, but if you're doing a different soup or it could be for that, I have a really great bread recipe that I will give you that I will give credit to Anna Hadfield, one of the young ladies that comes to our house and
what does she make? What's
engaged
it called?
To be married soon. It's bread. She has a bread recipe that's like a pretty fast recipe. And we just call it Anna's bread. So
the secret, the mystery remains until she talks to Anna.
Exactly. But she throws it together, and then, it's just an hour and a half rise. And that's it. Because after the first rise, you put it into your Dutch oven and then put it in the oven for 450 degrees. So it looks like sourdough. It looks real rustic. It doesn't take like a lot of kneading. You really just make it into a rough dough. And anyway, it's very simple, and it looks like crackly and beautiful, and it rises nice, and you do it in your Dutch oven like you would do sourdough. And it's not, if you have a couple of hours, then it works.
Perfect. Okay. We'll definitely post this recipe.
My daughter that just turned 13, she is the one that Libby, she loves doing bread. So she gets kind of upset when I'm going to tell you the shortcut that I do. She's like, I wanted to make the bread. And I'm like, I realize that, but I didn't want to have to clean up the aftermath. Okay. Sometimes that works. But if you have people come in for conferences sometimes. And so we love hosting. But I want to be able to spend time with them, and I don't really want to spend a ton of time preparing. But we obviously want to be sitting around the table eating good food. So there's so many. In our community, we have so many lovely ladies making bread and listing like, oh, I've got a couple extra loaves this week, and I'm like, oh, I used to do that. I was the bread lady and used to mill my grain and we had commercial ovens in our garage. I had a commercial mixer. I mean, we did all the things and used to take it to the farmer's market.
Wow.
We did this for several years.
In Ohio or here?
In Ohio. I got started in Atlanta, and there's a sweet family called the Bread Beckers it was awesome. And they taught you how, and, all the health benefits to milling your own grain and all that. So I got started when I was, a mom of 3, and we loved it. And then we went to Ohio, and I started going to the market to sell it. So we got up to making 40 loaves on a Friday and selling them out by 10 a.m. at the market.
Oh, I can imagine they sold out.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
For $6 a loaf. I mean, it was a great little gig. But I still had lots of littles and diapers and stuff. And so once my boys started playing football, my husband was coaching on Saturdays, it got a little bit crazy. And I'm like, okay, we have to make some decisions. So anyhow, bread baking is a fun thing for our family. And I love that we have lots of ladies that are doing that in their home. And then it is a fun art to get into. It's not just functional, you know, it's not just to feed your family, but it actually is so therapeutic. So I love it that we've got those options. And so I have done that where I'm like, I will pick up 2 loaves and then that's going to be Saturdays, you know, so you can make an easy soup, but like you're serving it with real bread. And that just makes it special, right?
Yes. And it's a great shortcut. You don't have to make every single thing homemade.
You're like on the way home from the grocery store, picking it off of somebody's porch.
If somebody's selling it, or with summer coming up, there's a farmer's market. People sell all kinds of baked goods. That's a great idea. I mean, it could even buy desserts from bakeries or farmer's market people.
The co-op here makes some really great bread in their bakery, and it is like very affordable. Anyway, that's another little hot tip, I think, for our area, that if you need something on the fly, or if you need to bring a meal to someone from there, they make homemade chicken pot pies that are unbaked. It's like $16, and it's this big old beautiful chicken pot pie. Ginger Elmore taught me that.
So hot tip.
I know.
Hot tip.
If you forgot.
Dinner, right.
I'm bringing dinner and I forgot. And I want to bring them something good and not pizza. You know, I mean, pizza's great.
Right.
No offense.
Right.
But anyway, yes, it's really nice.
I totally know what you're saying. What is your best prep tip when you're preparing for all these guests to come over?
So when we leave our house on a Sunday morning, because we have people come over after church often, we leave our house on a Sunday morning. Anytime a big crowd is getting ready, a large family is getting ready, it's like a tornado, right? Yeah. So you kind of undo.
I mean, there's we're heading out the door.
Oh yeah, there's just like every bathroom product is on the counters. Everyone's clothes are laying on the floor in the hall. I mean, like I don't even know how we make this big of a mess, but it's really great. So from all of the years of experience that my kids have had of like, oh, we got to get ready, you know, and different chore lists that we've gone through where everybody has a zone, like an entry zone. Someone is in charge of that. And it doesn't matter if those are not your shoes or you didn't leave that out or, you know, whatever. That's your zone. You clean it up. You put those things away for whoever's stuff it is. And if you have the living room or the kitchen or the bathroom or whatever you have, that's your zone to take care of. And we would rotate that as our chores, but it makes it nice that you can, if you're going to have company, to say, everybody go to your zones. And
and they are flying around, and you're not having to listen to those aren't my shoes.
Exactly.
Or I didn't put that there.
And I don't like to be the talking head. You know, you get so tired of like, and now I need you to clean this up, and now you need to, and you just, you know that your voice is droned.
See it. Yes. They're not even hearing what you're saying because you're just talking constantly, pointing this out and that out and this out. They just need to be able to have eyes to see it.
It's too much. Yeah. So that is knowing we don't have that exactly anymore. You know, you go through seasons where this works really well for a while, and then I don't know whether they get bored or, you know, seasons change and everyone's going to different sports or whatever. So sometimes it doesn't work, but because they've had that experience, and then now we can we've also had this phrase. If you have a lot to clean up really quick, we call it a white tornado. So it's the opposite of a destructive tornado, but it is really fast, and everybody has to clean an area. So it may not be, you know, an assigned area that you always have, but because you understand the zone concept, we can say, okay, everybody, white tornado. And we're going to turn on really fun music, different, depending on who gets to choose. It might be really different, but we put on fun music, and it usually, 20 minutes is not an unreasonable amount of time, but 30 is better in my opinion it just takes us a little, it just makes it that much better. And we'll put the music on, and we can come home from church and in 20 to 30 minutes have the house like, presentable. Who lives here? Yeah, no, it's really great. Great tip. Yep. Like I need you, and it might be little micro zones where you're doing the dining room table because it's literally covered.
It's covered with everyone's breakfast bowls,
water
and
bottles, and somebody's
and
backpack, and all the things.
Steady notes from yesterday.
Yeah. So you've got dining room table. I need you to do living room. I need you to grab the broom and do all the wood floors. You grab the vacuum. You do that. Who's doing bathroom? And I usually have somebody that's like, I want to do bathroom, and And then we might have to go from, after the youngest, just to double check that her standards are,
her standards are mom's
yours.
standards.
But they were teenagers or whatever. Yeah. Could go back and check and help and make sure. But that really works good for us. And they have such a good attitude about it. I think just because we've got music playing, everyone's, participating.
They're excited about guests about to walk in the door.
Yep.
They're taking ownership for their space. They don't want to have guests walk in and they have stuff everywhere.
Exactly.
And it looks awful.
Yep. And I have even, if somebody pops in early, I have noticed, younger ones grabbing something that they noticed out of the corner of their eye that was like, and kind of slipping behind me, like to go stow something away. So it's actually really cute. I'm like, this is good. They enjoy that. To participate in that way. And I can't really cook in a messy kitchen. So if there's like, breakfast dishes everywhere and all of that, I can get everybody else started and then be cleaning maybe the kitchen because I have my own, I like several of my kids do really well that way too. Especially now that they're older. But yeah, I can get that clean. I cannot cook until I can't even start something. It's kind of pathetic.
Until it is clean.
Yes.
Okay. On that topic, she is a cleaning queen. I would call her the spring cleaning queen year round. So I'm not sure maybe the empress of cleaning. She's all 4 seasons, guys.
That's funny.
So tell us so delving a little bit into cleaning, you've mentioned some great ideas for kids, the white tornado, everybody having zones, just making it fun, music. I love all of that. Tell us a little bit more about how you would encourage someone to clean, just in general.
Okay.
Because I think because you really have an eye for cleaning, you probably have some really great tips that would teach the rest of us how to make it a little bit more effective.
Yeah. You have to make time for it. That's one thing. And so I have learned so that I don't make my family miserable and get into a bad headspace. I have learned that if there's not time, then you have to lower your standards. And so you have to make time, obviously, but like I teach 3 days a week. On the days that I'm not at school, on Mondays and Fridays, that's when I'm going to have to squeeze in, get some of those things done and make them priority. And then I have to be okay that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, if I notice something that I didn't get to because there's other things happening on Monday, Friday, I'm not just cleaning my house. It is what it is. It's just fine.
You can't just be a ball of stress about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did that for too many years. Sometimes you don't realize that it's, you're the only one that's really that upset about it. I just thought, I don't know. Your personalities, sometimes you don't know yourself as well as everyone else probably does.
Exactly. And when you are that busy, you sometimes do have to make a choice. Like I have had to consciously think to myself, my teenager who's fixing to walk in the door, starving from lacrosse practice, does he really want me to mop the floor or does he want a hot dinner?
Exactly.
Yep. He cares less about the floor. Would never even notice if I did have it perfectly swept and steam mopped and then he's having to have, whatever we can wrestle up from the pantry.
Exactly.
He would just be beside himself if he walked into a hot dinner that was just amazing.
I know. Not even
starving.
Exactly.
And so, sometimes you do have to make those choices.
So there's certain things.
Floors can wait or whatever.
There's just some things. And honestly, so as far as, just being able to lower your standards for certain days when it just doesn't matter. We're not going to have people over for dinner Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday unless there is like, a sudden thing where we need to be a good friend to someone and they're not going to care in that situation either.
Right.
But it's not going to be the days that we're generally hosting. And so it's fine. It's fine. We do follow up from like, put your things away. We can't just keep dumping especially on the days when we don't have time to do a deep clean.
Yes. Or try to stay picked up.
Exactly. So that is something, but I do make it priority. Like everybody has their things. That's what I've noticed over the years too. my mom would come to spend time with my kids and help me when I would go Christmas shopping or just different things over the years that she would be like, grandma's in charge. And I would come home and all the kids' dresser drawers were like perfectly organized and folded, everything in there. And I was like, whoa, that is not my priority. So, but it really is hers. And she would be like, look what we did. Look what the kids did and stuff like that. And feel really proud about that.
Do it together.
Yeah. But the floors are crunchy. And I can't handle crunchy floors. And so I would be like, oh, this is so great. And learn to appreciate, like, obviously that's her thing. And it was really fun. And they would get that. And it was like nice. I'm like, well, don't get used to it because I don't do that.
I've got to sweep the floors right now.
Yeah. I would actually, my husband and I would talk on the phone if I'd been away for an overnight, with a retreat or something like that. I'd come home and be like, when I get home, I know that you guys have already cleaned and it's really, really great. And I'm so glad. Please do not be offended that I'm going to wash the counters while we're talking and I'm going to enjoy it and it's going to be really great. And he'd be like, oh, and I'm like, no, that's why we're talking about this before. So I've learned a lot. Instead of just doing things and he's like, oh, why is she doing this?
Why is she doing it as if I didn't do a good job?
I just have some little weird OCD things that I just have to clean the sticky off the counter. So anyhow, floors and counters are my thing. I can handle a lot of little clutter in certain aspects. So kind of knowing what your things are that you think are really important. If you can't relax, like with your guests, I do think that's hard. That's hard for me.
There are things that bring peace to people's minds.
So the big deal is like sweeping and vacuuming. I can be like, okay, no big deal. For a lot of other things, put your shoes where they go so that you can do that. Obviously to sweep your floors, you got to put your things away. So, but I just like doing things all the way. And I didn't know that was not necessarily some people just don't see the things. And so that's another thing to remember, to not overstress yourself when company's coming, depending. If you've been to someone else's home, you'll be like, oh, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. If I go to someone else's home and they don't have, we all have our own things. I feel comfortable and like relaxed. And so some of that plays a part in how I, who's coming. If I have a bunch of high school boys coming, why?
They don't notice anything.
They literally don't notice anything.
Yes.
So put your focus on making a lot of food.
Yes. What they notice is the massive amount of food that they see sitting on the stove when they walk in. And chocolate chip cookie bars that they can smell in the oven. They could care less about counters and floors.
Exactly. So there's just little things. I think knowing your guests is kind of nice. Sometimes you just don't. But I don't know. I remember going to my mother-in-law's to visit when we lived out of state. And she would always like really go all out with bedding for us. Like the beds were made and like turned really pretty, like new bedding, and the sheets were turned, and little things. And that actually made me, I was always like, she's been preparing for me. Like it actually really was such a sweet, special thing. And I don't remember anything else. That like that just is like a special speaking to you. Yes, so I don't know. That was
her way of showing that she, like you said, that she had prepared for you and that you were welcome and she was thinking about your comfort. She wanted you to sleep well.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. That's a great thing to do.
So I, as far as cleaning, I love to clean because it just is like a box checking thing. I like to know that I did it well. And so podcasts, that's when I listen to your podcast and doing all the things. I do. I have like my podcast and it's like a treat to me. So I don't get to listen. I really don't want to just sit and listen anyway. No. I would prefer to be doing something. So when I'm cleaning or, making long drives or something, those are the times where I'm going to really take in podcasts and audiobooks.
That I actually think that is a stellar tip because I am the same way. There are times when I'm just tired. I don't want to get up. I'm looking at the kitchen and I just really am thinking, oh, I don't. But it's not bedtime. Right. Let's say it's 7.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So if I just tell myself,
it's a treat.
Look at your podcast list, pick out something, or if you have an audio book that you're in the middle of, if you just have some things ready to go, or if you have a playlist, if you don't have one, have your kids help you make a playlist. I say that because my 16-year-old son is
to make it for you. That's so
tech
great.
savvy. He's like, Mom, just stand in front. Like, I don't know. What are the He's like, well, what do you like? I don't know. Just put something on there.
Exactly. I know.
So yeah, if you have one of those things to go to, I would say book, podcast, or playlist. If you just press play, all of a sudden
you can talk yourself into something.
Talk yourself into it. Time will fly by. It's no big deal because cleaning is rote. It really is. It's not that you can't stop and think about something or, need to figure out, maybe Google how to clean the inside of an oven better. But, just for general daily chores, you can kind of be on autopilot.
Yep.
Just
Dana White, her cleaning at is it called Pace of Life or Speed of Life? I don't know.
I think it is Speed of Life.
That book was really great. And I've gotten a lot of things done just listening to that. Like packed my house up, North Carolina. And books or podcasts that are motivating you to get your things done.
It was a book you listened to, not a podcast?
Yeah. Okay. She's got a book and then she also has Diaries of a Former Slob, I think is what it's called, is her podcast name. Hilarious. She's excellent. But yeah, it really helps you to understand if you feel like you've gotten overwhelmed and you're like, where do I start? Mm-hmm. It's really nice to have it because you're like, you start
as
implementing.
You have somebody in your head making you laugh, giving you tips.
Throw your trash in the garbage. Okay, got it.
Okay, check. Done. What's next?
Exactly. No, I love that. I do have to. It's really nice for me to have incentives, and those are my treats that I, kind of things that I get to. I feel like I'm indulging myself somehow, but I'm just listening to podcasts and getting lots of things done or talking to friends, if your mom or whoever, like the people that you don't get to talk to.
You can put on headphones or AirPods, something like that. And just your hands are free.
Yeah.
Hands-free talking.
And it is amazing the things that you can get done and you didn't know you did it. I'll be like, oh, I need to. And I'll go, oh, I already did that.
I finished cleaning the bathroom.
Yeah,
what?
I do.
Do you divide up your chores? Like if you say have Monday and Friday, do you have a list for Monday and a list for Friday? Or you just generally do what you want to do?
I should, but I don't really now. I think, I've thought about that.
Well, I don't really either anymore. I think when I had all my children at home, I was maybe a little more organized with that. Mm-hmm. But now it's mostly me. I still have one at home. Mm-hmm. But I kind of just do what I feel like
that day. See.
I still work really hard and I do get all the cleaning done, but I kind of am like, okay, it's the bathrooms that need it the worst. And or okay, today really we need to attack the kitchen. I kind of, it doesn't maybe get as messy quite as often. So I kind of just pick what is the most pressing.
You can see the thing that is going to really satisfy the situation.
The thing that's like, we really got behind on that.
For what our bathroom, I think we have a little wall heater in our bathroom and it just needs swept twice a week for sure. It could be actually to probably handle it every other day, but twice a week is okay. And it's like funny. I don't know, dust collects in that, I think. So it just kind of coats everything. But so it just is a very satisfying job to me. I'm like, I've got to get this swept up. But yeah, I have a whole routine, a whole sweeping routine. And yeah, like I said, you go into autopilot. And so I don't know. I got a lot of things done. I don't know what they all were, but it looks better.
But I really enjoyed my book and my podcast.
Keeping the laundry going, all that.
Yeah. My husband once said, just keep the machines going. That was his hot tip.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, that makes sense. If you,
the washer,
in the middle
the
of all your
dryer.
cleaning, don't let it just stop and don't think about it. If you have 5 loads of clothes or sheets and, the whole thing, you need to be running it, just pay attention to the machines.
My mom used to set timers. My mom, now all of our machines not all of them, I suppose, but we have a few new appliances and everything sings songs to us, like long, loud songs.
Yes, but if you have headphones on,
exactly, you might not know. It's true.
So a timer is true.
So she would set a timer. I remembered her setting the timers for 20 minutes to check the dryer to see if stuff was ready.
Yes.
Before it actually had buzzed. But yeah, keep herself going. The white tornado actually originated with my mom and her best friend. That's actually a fun story that I kind of forgot. She had a friend across the street and they were both stay-at-home moms, a season of life, and they just had littles. So her friend would say, hey, I'm coming over to your house. Let's white tornado your house. And then we'll have coffee and then we'll go back home to my house and we'll white tornado my house. And they would put their kids together.
How much fun is that?
Yeah. This is she was kind of a hippie, really, an out of the box thinker. We still they're still friends now, long distance and stuff. But anyhow, it's such a cool idea. So that's where that name came
and
from.
If all the kids, the neighbor kids are helping, then it's kind of fun. If they're actually
and we were all,
it.
all of the grade school kids were all like gone at school during the day. So I think it was just my sister and her little boy. They were preschoolers. So they got to play together and then they got about stuff done. But she's like, it was the best because like in 2 hours time, we had both of our houses, like the general, clean up. And it was fun because we were talking and laughing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like,
so instead of sitting down, having coffee, which is great too. But they could actually feel
that was
like
their treat
we have to
at
get.
The end.
Well, that's true. You said they had coffee. So, but to be able to just talk and visit and laugh while kids are playing and cleaning. Great idea.
Super fun. So we held on to those ideas for long. Yeah. Still we're passing it on and the kids still say it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home? How do you make them feel welcome?
My girls, especially now that flowers are starting to bloom, finally, we've got a yard full of daffodils. So that will be something we will see on every little thing that will stand still. We'll have little faces of daffodils because my girls will be like, I'll go get the flowers and stuff. So that's really fun. But we don't obviously have that all year round. Although I have seen a couple of ladies giving tips to just buy a little bouquet at Walmart or whatever through the winter. And I'm like, that is a great idea. We should do that. I always have a drink station that is kind of out of my walking space in the kitchen. I prefer, so we have like a little buffet that's off. So if people bring drinks, I'm like, okay, yep, right over there. And we always make sure that we've got a thing of sweet tea or, ice water or whatever already set up before people come. So it's something that I always would forget. I don't think about beverages personally. Like it's something that was always hard. So when we had a smaller, our family was smaller and we would have just a small family over, we would get halfway through our meal and then someone would be like, can I have some water? And I'm like, oh, so embarrassing. Like, I mean, it happens so often because I just
it's
don't
not a big
think about it.
Part of your meal.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I mean, or sometimes I would be thirsty and be like, I'm so sorry, but I did not, I don't know, I'm looking at a set table and not noticing there's no glasses. So that is like a saver for me because I already know myself that I will not remember. And then I don't mean to. I'm really social. So I will come and we'll just start talking and I won't remember to offer people things. So
do you put the glasses at the drink station so they know, go pick up a glass and pick what you want to drink?
Yeah, we'll have wine and, the bottle opener there and already have the wine glasses there and our water goblets, depending, or, plastic cups, whatever depending on the crowd. And have everything already set up there. So people know, when they see that it's a help yourself. And so everyone's got what they need. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. And having music and just welcoming everybody in. And especially if they want jobs, finding jobs. Finding jobs for people.
Put those teenagers and young adults in the kitchen and they will take over.
Yeah. And it really is such a, your kitchen is such a communal place. So it makes it so much more fun.
What is your must-have kitchen item and where can we find it?
It's probably been said on here, but I love the chopper.
Okay. What brand do you have? Full Star?
I don't. Yes.
That's been recommended. But that's okay because that tells people it's a really popular item.
Yeah.
A lot of people use it.
I keep wondering if someday, I've had mine for, I don't know, maybe a year. And I think I texted Rachel and I was like, what do you have? Tell me what it is. Because I heard it on their show.
Yes.
And I'm like, how did we live without this? It's just it cuts everything so perfectly too.
And when you're cooking for a crowd, it's not just, you're not just chopping one onion. You might be chopping
and you're not
a lot of onions.
Slipping with the knife and slicing your finger open right before company comes in.
That's true. You are doing a quick little chop and next vegetable chop. It just makes it so much faster.
I know. I keep wondering if they're not very expensive. So I keep wondering, I'll probably have to replace this at some point. Surely this plastic arm thing is going to break because we just really slam it.
Right.
Especially when you're doing the big red onions or something like that.
But it's holding up pretty good.
So far so good.
Well, I'm pretty sure the one that has more blades is maybe about $40, but you can get some with less blades for $25.
Yeah.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. It kind of depends on what you would use it for, how many different, but you can replace and get all sorts of different small chop, big chop.
Yeah.
There's more like slicers.
I think I used just the small one and like the medium one for like tomatoes. And then they have like a long slice one. And that's really nice for slicing strawberries for like strawberry shortcake or something, or, angel food, strawberries for angel food cake or something like that.
Consistent too.
Yeah. So that was actually one of the jobs that I handed out to one of those young men that was like, what can I do? And I was like, here you are, the strawberry chopper. And he's like, okay.
Okay, fun.
Yeah. That and my Instapot are probably just like my big, I don't use the Instapot for like meals. Like I'm not I just really use it for the convenience of speeding up one process of my recipe that I'm using in my big pot. Cause usually they're not big enough for me
cooking
anyway.
Chicken or something. So do you have the 8-quart?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest one, at least for Instapot. There might be other brands that have bigger. So you have a funny story for us.
I do. My daughter and I were talking about it this morning, and I said she hadn't heard the story. So she's like, oh yeah, you should tell them that. When I was pregnant with my oldest son, I would be so exhausted. Like I was like, I had narcolepsy. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was like, something is terribly wrong.
And this is your first, you said it was your first.
Oh, yes. I really did not know what was happening because I didn't think I was pregnant. So I was like, you didn't know. Well, yet. I think that I am. I think, it's been a while, but I think I had a hunch. So I took a pregnancy test too early. And it was negative. It didn't show up, or I maybe didn't notice that it was showing up at all.
Well, like you say, I think if you don't have the strong enough hormones, maybe yet.
Right. And so this was 25 years ago. So who knows?
And
maybe they weren't.
Right, exactly.
They
wasn't
weren't as sensitive.
Maybe nowadays it's great.
So I didn't think I was pregnant, but I couldn't figure out like why if I was driving my car at 4:00, I would have to pull over to the side of the road because I could just like fall asleep so fast. It was like, what is coming over me? So we had one day and, I was home and preparing dinner and I had like not had taken a nap. I had started to be like, I'm just going to have to go to sleep. I guess. I don't know what's wrong with me. It never had happened in my life. And I'm getting dinner ready for my husband coming home soon. And we're pretty, newly married. We were married 10 months at that time. I had put water on to boil and had made a spaghetti sauce. And so the sauce had been just like simmering on low, I don't know what, on a low setting, and had just turned the water on and I was going to make pasta. And I thought, I'll just sit on the couch for a minute and just rest my eyes.
Just rest.
Just for a minute.
Rest the eyes for one small minute.
When my eyes finally opened.
When they were finally rested.
Yes, exactly. The whole pot of water was completely boiled down to nothing and the handles had fallen off the pot. It was like the welding came off.
What? Because it was so hot.
It had been just sitting there
cooking.
A dry pot on a hot, on high because you're trying to bring it to boil. And the handles had fallen off. So like that's just sitting there. But that was not the bad part. No. That sauce that had been just a very low simmer, you know how tomato sauce can, when it gets thicker, it just kept reducing. So it's going bloop, bloop, bloop. And like my entire ceiling of my apartment kitchen, of our little kitchen, was
painted,
hosed in tomato sauce and spaghetti sauce. It was terrible. And I was
and that's probably a popcorn
and it's
ceiling.
Like burned. Oh yeah. I don't even remember. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember the end of that
was
story.
Too traumatizing. You blocked it.
It was so bad. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, even a smooth ceiling would be terrible.
Yeah.
But you could at least wipe it, scrub it. Popcorn ceilings are the worst for something like that. Like my husband probably I assume that scrape it, redo it, repaint it.
It was such a mess, such a mess. Oh my goodness, that was.
Did you
just a funny
find out you were pregnant?
Yeah, I did actually. We had a sweet family that we used to spend a lot of time with, and from our church that had girls in our youth ministry that I adored, and I was like, oh, I these girls are so amazing. So my husband encouraged me I was a pretty new believer. And he said, you should be mentored by their mom. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh goodness. Okay. So he said, just go spend time with them. And so I asked them if I could spend a day a week. I had Mondays off and I was like, can I just spend time with you? They homeschooled. I'd never heard of homeschooling before that. I mean, I just had not grown up in this whole culture. And so I spent every Monday with their family the whole first year that we were married. So they had seen me, they saw me every Monday. And I was at their home on a Monday in that same general time frame. And she would typically just like dump a load of laundry and like, you fold this really quick. I'm going to go do this. And then I would have her 7-year-old would read to me and I just helped them and did the different things. And then she also ministered to me in a huge, huge way. But I remember her husband coming home from work one day and I'm totally passed out on their couch with laundry everywhere.
And they knew and something is different.
He sat down next to me and he said, hello, mama. And I went, what? Why are you saying that to me? And he just looked at me like, yeah.
This
like
is not her your husband,
I
normal.
mean, they had 5 children.
He's
like,
probably
I know what this
thing
looks
with his
like.
wife. Yes, because you probably didn't, as active as you are, you probably didn't recognize I need to sleep more and I probably need a nap
really
during the day.
Yep. So anyway, it was pretty soon after that. It was
pretty
like,
soon.
Sure enough.
You're like, what? Okay, maybe I should take another pregnancy test.
Yeah. So that was pretty hilarious.
At least there weren't guests walking in the door right after the explosion.
Yes, exactly.
Which has been known to happen to people before.
Oh yeah.
If anyone's listened to past episodes, I had a basketball burn in my son. I won't retell the entire story, but a son with a young son, toddlerish age, we had a heater that had a grate in the basketball, somehow got between the grate and the heater was burning and ash was filling the air. And anyway, long story short, guests were about to walk in. There is ash everywhere, including all over the kitchen where I had salad laid out before owning a salad spinner, which was my recommended product. On my episode.
That makes sense. Drying salad. I used to do that. Yes.
So, it's just always just kind of ramps it up a notch when it's happening when your guests are about to walk in.
Hilarious. Oh my gosh. My mom's friend that white tornadoed with her, they were putting on some ladies' tea. And as the ladies were walking in the front door, my mom turned the faucet on and the whole handle broke off, like in her hand, and it just started spraying to the ceiling. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I just remember hearing this story because when I got home from school that day, the aftermath was pretty much cleaned up. Sounds really traumatizing. You have to get to a water main or something, or shut off the water.
Turn the water off for the house right before the tea party.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a second story?
Well, this is actually a more recent story, and it was just really great. Kind of an encouragement that, the show can just keep going when things like that happen.
Oh, yes.
But we have a sweet friend that is our boy's friend that is with us a lot and, has just become kind of one of our kids. And so he had friends, he goes to college here. So his parents were coming into town. And he really wanted an opportunity. It was this time of year where it's warm one day and not warm one day. And we don't really have a lot of big gatherings places. So he wanted to have a big meal at our home so his parents could meet all of the people that he loves, not just our family, but invite lots of people. And so he's like, this is what I want to do. And these big eyes, and I'm so excited about it. And my husband and I are like, wow, okay, so who all? And we're talking, and we're counting up. It's 65 people.
Wow.
And my husband said, well, why don't we maybe do it at the park? Because it's been nice and everything. He was like, no, I really wanted to have it at your house. And he's very forward, which because he's just kind of become one of our own kids. And so we're like, that's actually a sweet, it's a sweet compliment, right? They're like, I want it to be here because I want to be able to have kids, friend or some of our guests like playing board games or cards, and I want to have cornhole out back, and my dad's going to grill, and help JC grill, and we'll do this whole thing. And he had it all planned out in his head. And so my husband and I looked at each other like, okay, I mean, that's okay. That's all right. So we're going to do this. And it turned out to be 40 degrees and raining.
Oh, no.
But everyone's coming. And so what do we do? What do we do? Because
we have
a tiny, our house is not, I mean, especially now that we've opened the kitchen up, it would have been a totally different ballgame if our kitchen was going to be like it's about to be. But it was amazing. We were like, how do we do this? And so the show went on. We literally, that afternoon, where was it, on a Sunday? I think it was I can't remember, but I think it was a Saturday. That morning, my husband and all my sons picked up all of our furniture and took it to the garage.
That's amazing.
We cannot fit this many people into our house, into our living space.
They literally the living room into a huge dining room.
All of the couches. We moved the table out of the way. No, where did we do? We reduced our dining room table, took the leaves out, and to make it small, so it was like the food table, but it didn't take up as much space. And then we pushed chairs out to the outside edge. And then we have a bunch of church pews in our garage because my husband got a really great deal, and he's taken them apart and building long dining room tables with them. Oh. But they're a resource that we had.
Yes.
So we just they took all of the couches. I mean, literally just like we were moving, they just took all the furniture outside and then brought in pews and lined the walls. So our house was like echoing. Because it was.
That is hilarious. I'm just looking that everyone is sitting on pews.
Oh yeah.
For dinner. I love it.
The kitchen, like, people didn't even really use them a lot. And I was like, I know, because people were conversation circles, but it opened up all of our flooring. Anyway, I don't know that I would always recommend.
But it was this young man felt so loved.
It was great.
I mean, that made his dream come true.
He did. It looked different than he had envisioned, but it turned out to be a great day. And people were like, "Oh, do you remember?" I mean, it was such a while. We had so many people through, so I still keep meeting people like, "I've met you one time at your home. It was at that," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't remember hardly anything from that day." Because it was like,
have you had any weird questions like, what made you decorate with pews?
I did have to resist because I am such a planner and I'm so particular, I did have to resist myself thinking that I needed to tell that to every single person that walked through. I was like, at some point I was like, you just need to shut up.
They probably could figure it out. Something is different.
Right.
This is not how they normally live.
This is not how my house normally lives.
I don't usually decorate with pews and have no furniture.
That's right. It was the funniest thing ever. But anyway, it was just a funny experience. But I'm like, you know what? We're pretty good at that. We can just shoot from the hip and be like, okay, pivot. What do we have to do? What do we change? And it works out.
Great that you have some strong boys to help out.
I was impressed. I definitely was impressed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I did have one more recipe that I can put on your website.
Yes.
And it's the egg roll in a bowl that my youngest told me that we had to put. She really wanted me to tell you that.
Okay, tell me about egg roll in a bowl.
Yes, it's a very fast weeknight recipe that could be done for a big crowd. I mean, why not? And it's really inexpensive if you think about it. Ground pork. You could do ground pork sausage, or you could just do ground pork and then season it yourself, which is what we like to do because we prefer having sausage without sugar in it. And most sausage you buy has sugar in it. So we just do ground pork in my big soup pot and season it with adobo, of course.
Of course.
And crushed red pepper, and then thyme and sage and just all of the good sausagey kind of smells. I don't like fennel at all, so that's another thing.
You can take it out.
You don't have to have it. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of like just breakfast sausages or something like that, like the tubes of them don't have fennel, but butcher shops often do that. And it's like the one thing I couldn't figure out for so long. I was like, why do I not like this? I know it's like a good quality meat or whatever from a good place. And then my butcher son was the one, he was like, Mom, you don't like fennel. And I was like, oh, that's it. So anyhow, but yes, just add all your sausage seasonings to that ground pork as you're browning it. And as soon as it's all browned, you could put, I'd usually do like 2 pounds of that for our family. And then a whole head of cabbage, sometimes 2 heads, because it cooks down so much and we like to have leftovers for lunch, especially now I only have 5 kids living at home. So we don't have to make usually as much as we used to have to. And coarsely chop cabbage, throw it in there, put a cup of water just to add a little liquid so it can steam, put the lid on and let the cabbage kind of soften. And then you don't really season it yet because the adobe or liquid aminos, Bragg's liquid aminos is the soy sauce that we use. And you just put a couple of squirts in there. So how much is that?
You'll have to measure and write it down for all of us scientists out there.
Exactly. Probably 2 to 4 tablespoons is what I'm guessing. I'm guessing. Put that in there just to season it. And so that is so salty that you don't really usually have to put any other seasoning, but you could, salt and pepper to taste at the end. But that's literally it because that cabbage like cooks down. It's like sweet and delicious and the cabbage, and it's just like an egg roll. Oh, I usually chop up an onion in that too, but it's not necessary. But it just kind of, especially if you have any onion haters, they don't know because it's all mixed up with cabbage.
And you do that with the ground beef. You brown it with the ground pork. Or the ground pork, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. If you're going to add the onion.
You can put it in it really,
the cabbage.
Yeah, with the cabbage. It doesn't matter. There's really not an order. I mean, you can just throw this all in because it really cooks down and there's not a lot of liquid. I mean, really not a lot. It's not like a soup or anything. So it cooks down. And then as soon as that cabbage is done, and soft, you just serve it over rice or not. My husband, we will try to eat low carb. So that's like a really great meal too.
Oh, that sounds delicious and so fast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, that is a quick weeknight
Start
meal.
to finish, you're talking 20 to 30 minutes.
That I definitely will post.
Ooh, and shortcut for that one is just buying coleslaw, the bags of coleslaw.
The pre-shredded cabbage.
Yep.
Do you do the angel hair, the fine, or either one?
Whatever.
Or just
whatever
regular?
Is, on sale.
Right.
I will often have several bags of that shredded coleslaw already. I mean, like every time I go to the grocery store because we'll use it one way or another if we cook it down or not. Yeah.
I love that.
Anyway, there's another recipe.
So
but
many
fun.
I
know.
And it sounds like pretty easy recipes to create.
Yeah.
It's not going to be
kind of the
too
name
hard
of our
for
game.
the new cook.
Yes. Yeah.
So I love it.
It's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you came. We have so many fabulous tips and recipes and things to share. So go to comeoverfordinner.com and you can find it all there.